everyone, I'm Allison. I am the education coordinator here at the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association, Newfoundland and Labrador, and I am here today with Brian Marshall.
Hello.
Brian is a long-time volunteer with the association here in Newfoundland and Labrador. He is currently the chair of our Meniere and Tinnitus resource group, and part of that role includes staying current on information relating to these topics so that he can share resources with others in our province. Brian also has lived life experience with both Meniere's disease and tinnitus, and has hearing loss. So he has a wealth of personal knowledge to share with us. I would like to emphasize that Brian is not a medical professional. This is his own personal experience that he shares with others, and I certainly think that you will find it informative. So what we're going to do today is, this is going to be sort of an interview style question and answer. I'm going to ask Brian some of the most frequently asked questions, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Allison.
All right, so we're going to start off with tinnitus. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what is tinnitus?
Tinnitus is, in broad terms, it's head noise. It's not necessarily in the ears. It's in the brain is where the sound is produced. Everyone perceives it to be either in the head, in the ear, or above or around the body, but it's a noise that carries with the person and has no known source. So people feel that they're hearing a noise. They don't want to say, I'm hearing a noise that no one else does, because people think they're crazy.
And we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't necessarily share their symptoms with very many others. They often keep that to themselves.
Yeah.
So if I think that I have tinnitus, what would my first step be? What should I do?
I would go to an ENT or an audiologist, and they would do a hearing test with you, and in the soundproof booth, the noise that's in your head or around your body would be more prominent there, because you're not hearing any outside noise to drown out that sound. And then going to the ENT, they might confirm that it is tinnitus.
Okay, excellent. We hear this question all the time. Is there a cure?
There is no known cure. Tinnitus is a symptom of other things, so it is not the actual problem. There's something else that's causing tinnitus. So until that is solved, then you won't have a solution for your tinnitus. It could be something as simple as taking a new medication that's triggering a tinnitus effect. So if you want to try and change your medication through authorization of your doctor or pharmacist, it could change your tinnitus. Okay. It could be something as simple as, it could be something in your diet, but it's different for every single person.
Okay, so we know that there's no known cure. So why don't we talk a little bit about what effective strategies there are that individuals can use to cope with their tinnitus. And I will emphasize that this is very individual, person to person, and very often people need to try a wide variety of options or strategies before maybe finding something that works best for you.
Just from being in the resource group that we have, I find that many people have different solutions that they have for coping with their tinnitus. They say that caffeine can be a factor, so a lot of people who like their tea and coffee, don't want to give up caffeine. Right now I haven't had very much caffeine in the past 20 years. You can get decaf tea and coffee. There are other things they say you should or could give up is there's caffeine, smoking, alcohol, fats, and junk food sort of thing. The way I find to cope with tinnitus is I made it my friend. I know that tinnitus is there. It's not life-threatening. Mine has been going for 24 hours a day for the past 20 years. And I just know that I'm alive if I hear it.
So, and we've talked about this before, but why don't we share with everybody here with us today, what does your tinnitus actually sound like to you?
Mine personal, I have 3 tones, and they're all variations of a dial tone on a phone. It's very high-pitched. I have one of these tones goes with my heart as a pulsatile tinnitus. And if I focus on them, they are very annoying. So that's why I say make it your friend. You just push it to the back of your brain and say, it's not going to harm me. You don't need to fear it. If you let it control you, it will. So you've got to be in charge of it.
Okay, great. So some of the things that we've talked about so far are possibly looking into any medications that you might be taking that could be causing or aggravating your symptoms, possibly options for cutting back or eliminating caffeine, nicotine, smoking, alcohol, and just overall general healthy eating strategies, trying to eliminate fatty foods, things like that, and focusing on things other than your symptom. Right. Now, I will say there's probably people sitting at home saying, well, that's easier said than done. So what have you seen people do, or what do you do in terms of trying to focus on other things or staying positive when you have a sound in your ear 24 hours a day?
When you realize that it's, I'm going to say just a sound, it's not just a sound because it's very annoying until you think about times when you're doing your favorite hobby. You don't hear it, you don't realize it's there, but the tone, if you go in a soundproof booth and have your tone level measured, it will be at a 10, say, and when you're at your most calm time, you go in the soundproof booth again and have it measured, and it's still at 10. It's your perception. It's not it's not the sound. It's just your perception of the sound. If you don't have enough sleep, you're more easily stressed, and stress is an enemy of it because you're just not comfortable with things. So the more you're stressed, the more you will dwell on it, and the more you'll find it annoying. So if you're not stressed, you can cope with it a lot better.
Okay. So working on focusing on other things, doing things you enjoy, keeping your mind elsewhere, positive attitude, and trying to reduce stress. And there's lots of things that people can do to reduce stress, and that can be very individual as well. But there's certainly lots of strategies out there. I know that in your group, you often have different types of professionals come and speak about stress reduction. I don't know if there's some maybe we want to just throw out there so people have an idea of what, massage therapy can be. I was just going to say massage therapy. Okay.
No, I can't remember.
I know that it's all very individual to the person, but, it can be hobbies or it can be different types of relaxation treatments.
Yeah. The tinnitus retraining therapy is a big one that people go to, and you are habituating to your tinnitus. It is a process that takes a bit of time, but in the end, it is you're much better able to cope with it after you go through this program. One gentleman who was in our group, he was in poor shape because of his tinnitus. He was depressed and almost suicidal, and he went into the tinnitus retraining therapy. And part of that is not dwelling on your tinnitus, so he did not come to the group. And I ran into him at the store, and it seemed like he was 6 inches taller. He was a completely different person. He had a much brighter outlook on life because he was in charge of his tinnitus. And that is a very positive one to go through.
So tinnitus retraining therapy is also an option available to people as a coping strategy.
That's right.
Okay. Another really common question that we get asked is about medications or technology. So are there certain things that I can take that will help me feel better? Or are there other pieces of technology that I can use to potentially help?
There is the TRT, tinnitus retraining therapy. With the medications, it's more so medications that cause tinnitus as opposed to ones that will alleviate it. So again, if you are having issues, there are different forms of a lot of medication. So if one don't work for you, you can ask your pharmacist or doctor, and they can possibly change it. You know, it depends on your health situation and what you're being treated for.
And I certainly think that if you're experiencing these symptoms while taking certain types of medication or after taking certain types of medication, that it would be very worthwhile to go back and be sure, go back to your medical professional and be sure to mention that you're experiencing this, to look at what other medication options might be available to you.
Yes. Another cause of it could be trauma, as in a car accident or concussion or something like that. So you can, after you've been treated medically, you can check with a chiropractor to see if there's anything that needs to be aligned, or other healthcare professionals.
Okay, excellent. So you told us one story of someone that you knew who had very successful treatment. Do you have any other maybe success stories of people who are successfully managing or coping with their tinnitus?
A lot of people who come to the group realize that they're not alone, and there are other people with their problem. And once you get the comfort of knowing that it's affecting more than you and it's not really life-threatening, then you're more comfortable with it, and you get some coping strategies from other people. So there's that for...
So we've talked a lot about some of the symptoms, some of the treatments, how different people are affected. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share about your personal story, about other people as they have experienced what seems to work for a lot of people? Do you have anything else to share?
I just tried to continue living my life and not be a recluse, because it's an easy trap to fall into. You can just stay home and be miserable and waiting for the next episode, and that will bring about another episode because of your distress.
What about, so it kind of comes back down to, that whole positive thinking thing. I know it's impossible to be positive all the time, but to just not let your symptoms control your life.
Yes. You've got to be in charge of it. Again, it's something that will pass, so you just got to cope with it for the moment and don't let it run you.
Yeah. One thing that we didn't quite get into, or maybe we touched on a little bit, but is the relationship with hearing loss and tinnitus and Meniere's disease. So how does hearing loss play into all of this?
Tinnitus and hearing loss, people say my tinnitus is getting louder all the time, when in fact it could be that their hearing is decreasing. So the tinnitus being produced in your head stays at a constant level, and because you have lost your hearing, you are not having outside noises drown out this tinnitus. So it makes it sound like it's becoming louder, when it is in fact your hearing is decreasing.
So for sure, if you are in a situation where you feel like your tinnitus sounds louder, we would strongly recommend having a hearing test to see if there is actually a drop in your hearing. That would be a really good first step.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And what about the connection with hearing loss and Meniere's disease?
Again, with the Meniere's, when you have an episode, you are destroying your inner ear
hair cells. Yep.
Little bit by little bit. So again, with every episode, you're losing a little bit of your hearing until you have quite a number, and then you're deaf.
Or, you have a severe to profound hearing loss over time.
Yeah.
And I guess we can share that you, over the past few years, have started wearing hearing aids. So your hearing has dropped to a point where you have a piece of technology to help you with that.
I'm actually deaf in my right ear. Conversationally, I can hear some noises, but not be able to hear conversationally. I have a hearing aid in that ear that transmits to the left hearing aid, so I can hear conversations from my right to the left. And otherwise, if I wanted to hear Alison, I would be turning like this the whole time. But it's much better with this technology. Okay.
I've just thought of something that I think we forgot to talk about with tinnitus, so I just want to come back to that. About a coping strategy. What about sounds and masking the sounds?
Yes.
So what is masking, and how could that help with tinnitus?
The masker can help because if you go to your audiologist, they can match the sound of your tinnitus, and it actually plays that sound or one close to it in your hearing aid. Or if you have just a masker that's not a hearing aid, it will play that sound in your head, and one sound eliminates the other, essentially.
Yeah, so it's like one sort of drowns out the other. I don't know if that would be the proper terminology, but so what we find is that, again, the sounds that people hear, everyone is unique. We've heard all kinds of stories of interesting sounding sounds that people hear as part of their tinnitus. So there's lots of different options available to people in terms of what type of sound might help you cope. Yeah. So for some people, it might be the sound of the ocean.
Nature sounds.
Yeah. For some people, it might be the sound of a fan or an air conditioner type of sound.
There's people, I personally have a radio on all the time in my house, that just a little bit of background noise drowns it out quite nice for me. When you do have these devices, you have to be aware that other people might not like them. So there's a compromise to be had in a lot of situations.
And I think, there's lots of technology out there today. There's potentially options for, playing a sound that just you hear. Or, as Brian mentioned, there's also the option, if you have hearing aids or you're using hearing aids, there's potentially the option to ask your hearing care provider if they can add some kind of masking sound into your hearing aid or the technology that you're using. Yeah,
and with the new technology, you can have programs on your phone that will wirelessly go to your hearing aids, or if you wear earbuds, it'll just send the sound through the earbuds to whatever program will help you.
Yes. So there's lots of options available there. Or some people just, have it playing out into the room while they're sleeping. Again, it's very individual.
I should touch on that part. When you go to bed, it's a lot of people say their tinnitus gets much louder, and it's because of usually the time of day. The city is quietening down, and there's less traffic noise, and so you're hearing more silence. So your tinnitus sounds like it's louder when it's in fact just less ambient noise to block it out. So again, people have trouble going to sleep because they're listening to it. And then you say to yourself, "Well, there's my tinnitus," and you push it right to the back of your brain and get a good night's sleep. Simple, right?
We know from years of talking to people that it's easier said than done, but I think Brian is a really great example of helping people and helping yourself just not focus on that.
That's right.
And over the years, I've heard you say many times, find the things you enjoy, do the things that you enjoy in your life, and focus on those things. And that seems to be one of the best coping strategies that there is.
That's right. And I still play hockey, and the only whistling I hear is from the referee. I don't hear my tinnitus at all when I'm on the ice.
Yeah. Okay, so we're back, and the second part we're going to speak about today is Meniere's disease. So, Brian, what exactly is Meniere's disease?
Meniere's disease is technically it's a fullness or pressure in behind your ear. These are the symptoms. Nausea and dizziness. You'll have hearing loss, and you will have tinnitus. These are the classic signs of Meniere's disease. During an episode of a Meniere's attack, you will experience dizziness. There'll be a pressure inside your head, like between your brain and your skull. And you will have some hearing loss, and your tinnitus will get louder. And then you will go through a cycle where you will get nauseated, and you will feel very tired and want to have a rest and recover.
Do you know if there's sort of an average time how long someone might be going through that, or does that really vary from person to person?
It varies from episode to episode within a person, really. I've had them where they're as short as a sensation of someone pulling a rug out from under you. There's other times when I've been over 24 hours with dizzy spells and the nausea, and it's, as you can imagine, not very comfortable.
Yes, very challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So if I have been experiencing these symptoms, and I think that I may be experiencing Meniere's disease or an attack. That's the commonly used term, correct? Yes. An attack of Meniere's disease, which doesn't sound very fun. What would I do? How is that diagnosed? Who would I go to see about that?
You will go to your family doctor, who would send you to a specialist, ENT specialist, and they would do some testing with you and determine that it is Meniere's disease.
Okay. And an ENT stands for ear, nose, and throat specialist, for anyone who might not be familiar with that. Okay, so a very similar process. And the big question, how does someone manage or cope with their symptoms of Meniere's disease?
Again, it would be up to the individual, because everyone would handle the stress of it differently, and stress is an enemy of Meniere's disease. The more stressed you are, the worse you will be able to cope with it, and it can actually bring on an attack. I found that after a while, I had to come to terms with it and say that I'm having an episode, and I would just go and lie down and wait for it to pass. I wouldn't be as panicked as I was in the early days when I was having it. So I found that by relaxing with it, and that part of my life wasn't so upset. Your recovery time after an episode was a bit better.
And I would imagine that for anyone who is in the early stages of experiencing some of these symptoms, it can be very frightening for people. What is happening to me? What is going on?
My first episode, I thought I was having a stroke. I was alone in my house and sitting on my couch watching TV, and then I sort of tipped over to the side, and I didn't really panic. I didn't know what to do. I recovered and straightened up a bit, and then my family came home and we dealt with it, and I ended up going through the full cycle, and I went to my ENT, my ear, nose, and throat, and had an eventual diagnosis of Meniere's disease.
Okay. So, any other types of treatment or coping strategies other than trying to work with what you got?
Yeah. One thing I would recommend is to try and continue with your life the way it is. Don't let it dominate your life. Don't let it... it is life-changing, but it's not life-ending. So if you have a social life, if you go out for cards or bingo or hockey or whatever you may be involved in, attend these, let people know your situation, and then you're not hiding it. It's not something that you'd be ashamed of. You're just out amongst your friends. So that's one thing that kept me going.
I think that's really important, because I know that over the years we've done lots of work on this together, and we've met a lot of people who don't really share with others about what they're experiencing, and who don't maybe talk about their symptoms. They're embarrassed.
Yeah.
But if you share with others about, this is what I'm experiencing, these are the symptoms, if this happens to me while I'm with you, you'll know what to do. I think it's very important for people to be able to talk about it, and to not be embarrassed, so that other people know how to help you if an attack should occur while you're with family or friends.
Yeah. If the outside visible look, if I'm having an episode, I could be staggering. It would look like I'm drunk. You're able to speak just as coherently as I can now, but I don't have, you're not steady. So outwardly it would look like you're drunk, and that is probably why people don't want to be seen outside. I always had a sign with my wife. I would tell her that I was dizzy, and I might just put my hand on her, and then she'd lead the way, and I'd get out of the situation. So it would be cooperation with whoever I'm with. And I also, if I was in other parts of town, I would know a place to go to relax and be comfortable, so that, again, I'm not stressed, and you don't have to make it a half-hour drive when you're so uncomfortable.
Okay. Does diet, or can diet affect the symptoms? Is that known or not known?
I was told to avoid aged foods, so that would be like cheese and processed meats and that sort of thing. So if you're a pizza lover, sorry.
Or put fresh ingredients on your pizza.
Yeah. And the other ones are the same as tinnitus, really, is the nicotine and caffeine.
That old caffeine.
Yeah, the old caffeine. So you just eat healthier, and again, sleep healthier, and you're much better able to cope with your situation.
Okay. Now, I know that there is one type of treatment that some people opt for
Right.
that can make some significant difference to your symptoms, but there are pros and cons, I guess, to that. I don't know if you want to speak to that as well.
There is one that is a gentamicin injection that can alleviate the symptom, the dizziness, and nausea is in my mind, the worst part of it. The side effect is that it can make you deaf. It will make you, it'll kill the hair cells in your inner ear, and then you do not hear, but the other symptoms most times go away.
Are gone. So we're choosing complete hearing loss.
Yeah.
Usually in one side. The injection would normally be done in one side. Okay.
Yeah, because both Meniere's and tinnitus are usually single-sided, but there are times when it's bilateral, and that's a very unfortunate thing for the person affected.
So the injection, if someone opted for that course of treatment, is that performed by an ear, nose, and throat specialist?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Usually, yeah.
And so that usually alleviates some of the worst parts of the symptoms. But there's usually complete hearing loss involved with that process. So that's quite a decision for people to make. Some people opt for that, and for some it's a difficult choice.
With every episode of Meniere's that you have, you lose a little bit of your hearing. If you're starting out from your first episode, you have 100% hearing, and when you have the episode, you probably go down to 95%, and it'll only come back to 99%. And then with each subsequent episode, it'll repeat the process until you are completely deaf in that ear.
Do you know if there's any rhyme or reason to how frequently people have episodes, or does that just really vary from person to person?
In my experience, when you're least expected, it can come on. And that's more or less the way everyone else has portrayed it to me. It's totally random, and it can be 5 in an hour, or you can make 5 days, 5 weeks, or 5 months until the next one. And that's a downside to it.
Very unknown.
Yeah.
And unpredictable, I guess.
The apprehension is something that you have to work against.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Brian.
You're welcome.
And you are a wealth of knowledge and information, and I hope that this has been really helpful for others.